lane, lob to Mobley, pow! And Allen blocked the shot at the rim. Pow! With the left hand and a foul.
Hello and welcome to the Chase Down Podcast. My name's Carter Rodriguez. I am solo hosting today. Justin Rowan is on what's going to be around a 46-week vacation. God bless him. He's earned it. This was his COVID trip. He had to put it off. He's going to be gone for the next 3 weeks. So for the most part, you'll be seeing me with guests. You'll be seeing me having some different friends of the pod come on. But for now, it's just going to be me. We're going to be reacting to Media Day. And also, little teaser at the end, we're going to play out my sit down with new Cavaliers head coach Kenny Atkinson. So big kudos to the Cavaliers. But before all that, we got to talk about our sponsor. Chase Down Podcast is presented by Fubo TV, the official streaming partner of the Cavs. Watch over 350 channels of live sports and TV, including Bally Sports Ohio without cable. There is no cost. There is no commitment. Try for free at FuboTV.com/Cavs. Well, gang, Media Day has come. Media Day is gone. Obviously, first off, sad to not be in Cleveland. Justin's vacation certainly threw things off just a little bit. But of course, the Cavs had a new format. They had a bunch of different podiums, kind of like an all-star game. And, we got to hear from a ton of players. And I got to tell you, the vibes felt really, really good. It felt like a team that was unbelievably settled in kind of who they are, who they're going to be. There wasn't really any sense of identity crisis or like really any huge answers to or any huge questions to answer, beyond, the stuff that we've already been talking about all summer that, only can kind of be resolved by the court, Darius bounce back season, the fit of the guards, but it felt like a pretty unified organization wholesale. And it felt like everyone kind of was on message. It didn't feel like there was anything, that jumped out. I was scrolling through a lot of the availabilities today, kind of looking for anything that really perked my ears up. And frankly, there wasn't that much, because for the most part, it was guys saying stuff that, we already knew. Like, we knew it was good for the team to lock in Donovan Mitchell long term. We knew it was good for the team to lock in Evan Mobley, Isaac Okoro long term. Like, this was just a team whose business was, frankly, business-like in the offseason. And as a result, it wasn't the splashiest media day. With that said, still a lot of fun. It kind of feels like the beginning of the season in a lot of ways. They announced the training camp roster. The team already flew to Florida this afternoon for their training camp. Really excited to kind of see the updates coming out of that. But, it does feel like this is kind of, the season truly has started. And I'm just so darn excited for it. And for this podcast, before I go to my more extended 18-minute interview with Kenny Atkinson, which was also posted separately on the Cavs YouTube channel, if you just want to watch that, I pulled out some different snippets from both Media Day as well as Koby Altman and Kenny Atkinson's media availability last Friday, because I do think, even though it was kind of a workman-like, very business-like set of Media Day, there was still some interesting stuff to see here. And I think we're gonna start off with Koby Altman, who was asked about kind of operating under the new second apron, the new luxury tax rules, and how the team is going to best, how to deal with this new cap reality.
I think, Jason, it's a good question in terms of, the new collective bargaining agreement and just how restrictive the second apron is. We don't want to nerd out. John Nichols is here. He does our strategy, and he can do a separate session on this whole new collective bargaining agreement. But for all intents and purposes, the second apron is almost like a hard cap, and it really debilitates your ability to improve your team, to make trades. If you're in it for too long, it even freezes a draft pick years out. And so you got to be really strategic on what you do with not even so much your space. We're never going to be a cap space team, but operating over the salary cap and into the tax, and not going too far into the tax that it takes you away from the ability to improve. And I think, Jason, we're still studying it. There's 2 or 3 teams last year that went over the second apron that had tough summers this offseason. If you don't reach that pinnacle and you can't get better, what does that mean? And you have this astronomical tax bill. We're really fortunate that Evan Mobley was as good as he was for the years that he has been, under rookie scale. And this is the last year that we get to have that benefit of Evan Mobley being under rookie scale. He jumps next year, and then we probably most likely will be in the tax. But how do we operate within that? And I think, to your point, one, absolutely, you want to extend your best players. You want to keep your best players in town. That's absolutely always a strategy. But to control your destiny with your best players under contract gives you a lot more sustainability, a little bit more leverage in terms of your negotiations with other teams if you have to go that direction. But we certainly have looked at it. We studied it. It's only been about a year now. Even more restrictive policies are coming in this year now that it's fully in place, and we're going to continue to study it and hopefully stay away from that second apron. But there's definitely a portion of us looking at it saying, keep your best players under contract for as long as you can before you get to this zone where almost the NBA doesn't want you to be in.
So, I think that was a really interesting answer from Koby. And I do think if you're really paying attention, it informs a lot of what this team's kind of team building philosophy is, at least early, while everyone's kind of figuring out what the reality is. And, it's clear that the team is trying to do as deft of a job in avoiding that. And for those who aren't cap nerds, this new second, tax apron just really limits your team building abilities. You look at like a team like Denver, who has just had a really hard time holding on to talent as a second apron team. And, I think something I've talked about with Justin in team building in this new era is I think for certain franchises that manage their money just right and manage their long-term commitments just right, I think there's going to be a kind of a market inefficiency that comes from hanging around. Because almost every team above the Cavs if you look at, most tier lists of kind of how the league stacks up, almost every team above the Cavs is a team that's in or soon to be in that second apron territory, or are actively trying to work their way out of it. I mean, look at Minnesota dealing Karl Anthony Towns' contract reportedly, and so as these teams above the Cavs maybe take small hits of attrition just from not being able to make first round picks or being able to use any exceptions or accumulate salary in a trade, the fact that the Cavs kind of have their, the top 7 of their roster locked up for the foreseeable future if they so choose, I think it's one of those things where, yeah, obviously you're always looking to raise the ceiling of your team. And I don't think the team should stop trying to raise the ceiling of their team. But I do wonder if in this era, over the next 4 years, we're going to see that ceiling drop just a little bit of the rest of the, what they need to reach towards. Because, Boston's salaries are just so over the top, teams like Denver, teams like Philly, like these teams are spending a lot of money. And rightfully so. A lot of these teams are true blue contenders. I still would kind of argue the Cavs are on their way up to that kind of status, but I just think there's value in hanging around. And I think that Cavs fans who are used to an organization that's just, hey, we're close, let's spend as much as we want. Like, it's just important to remember that the league is different. The incentive structures are different. Like Koby said it better than I think anyone could say it. I think it was the perfect button on that soundbite, which is they have to avoid being in a place where the league doesn't want them to be in. And I think the league doesn't want you to be in is kind of the go-to quote there. They are disincentivizing that monster spending. So locking up guys to, market-friendly extensions the way they have, I think has been really, I think maybe 2 years looking back, we'll realize this was a better business summer than maybe those of us who wanted splashier moves, more turnover. I wonder if we'll look at it feeling like, oh man, the fact that, they've got guys making 18, 20, whatever million a year when the rest of the league is going through this rapid escalation. Like, I just wonder if that's going to play to their favor long term. So I thought that was a really interesting answer from Koby. And now I want to move over to Kenny, who, obviously I'm partial because he then spent 20 minutes talking to me. But even before he talked to me, I thought Kenny absolutely killed his media availability. My takeaway from watching Kenny was this is a guy who he's taken a month or two after getting the job, and he knows what he wants. He knows what he wants this team to be. He's dug in, he's done all the work, and he really has a strong picture for what this team is going to be. And I thought, he had a lot of great stuff. And we'll talk about some of the offense stuff later in the pod. He had a lot of great stuff, but I did want to note that, in the middle of the availability, he was asked about that run in January, February, where Darius was out and Evan was out. And, the question was posited to him like, hey, like, wasn't that a little smoother? Are you a little worried about how someone like Darius is going to fit in? And I'll tell you what, if you are a pro Darius Donovan backcourt, this answer should be music to your ears.
Well, and I really kind of sold this to Koby, like during the interview, like you, especially, and we'll go to the playoff conversation, because you have to be so versatile in the playoffs, right? Even with the two bigs, right? Like, there's series where you need two bigs out there the majority, 95% of the time to win the series. Same thing with the guards. So it starts with the rotations, getting the optimal rotations with both the guard situation and the bigs. But I've also seen a championship one with too small. I think of the Steph and Jordan Poole thing and how that helped us. So I don't understand like how two guys who are so talented, who are unselfish, who are both excellent passers, why that can't work. They are complementary to me.
They are complimentary to me. I think Kenny, who right out of the gate, and you never know how much is strategic and how much, what is earnest and what's not. But right out of the gate, he talked about being excited to coach Darius and work with these guards. I think I want to say it was Darius who said during his availability that like Kenny keeps talking about how he's a guard coach, and Kenny had great success in Brooklyn, coaching guys like Dinwiddie and D'Angelo Russell, coaching them to career years. Like, this guy knows how to coach a guard-driven offense and how to get a lot out of it. And, as someone who does really believe in the pairing, really believes in Darius as an engine to an offense, and maybe most importantly, just believes that, like, if you're going to do this, you have to do it. You can't just be like, well, they look good in January, so Darius, you just need to play shooting guard now. Like, to me, if you're going to do that, then you might as well just bail on the roster construction. Like, and because there's no point in making the sacrifices you make to accommodate a small backcourt if you're not going to like use their playmaking ability to its full potential. And so I think Kenny really came out pretty fervently. I mean, this is about as aggressive as he got. Obviously, it was a pretty friendly media availability. Probably the most he was like, I don't understand, and I've kind of felt that way too. Is like, yeah, there's things that the team could be better on, and Darius just had a bad year last year. Certainly not up to his standards, and he said as much during his availability today. But I think, if you're gonna do this, you can't go halfway. I feel like with this roster construction, you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound, and Darius is going to have to be an offensive engine. He's gonna have to play on the ball. He's gonna have to start plays. He's gonna have to finish plays. But I think overall, what I found to be kind of noteworthy is the fact that, like, in general, it just kind of felt like Kenny just had, I think Kenny, more than anything, just kind of wants to see the offense look a little different. I think he wants, and I mean, I think that's what a lot of the fan base has wanted too. They want to see that kind of variety, that kind of diversity. But like, I thought it was a pretty staunch, like, defense of the backcourt and a pretty quick dismissal of anyone who wants to kind of simplify for simplification's sake. And that's something I talked about in January last year, where I was like, we were trying to figure out why things were going so well with Darius and Evan out, when we kind of thought the season was dead on arrival when they both went out the same day. And I think, something I said that I thought played in their favor a little bit was like, everyone's job was just a little simpler. Donovan was the primary initiator. Everyone else had to space and just shoot whenever they were even kind of open. Jarrett was the sole big, so he didn't have to account for any space. So everything was simpler and everything was streamlined. And I understand the impulse to say we should just lean on that. We should just say, hey, look how much simpler everything, how much easier everything seemed in January, February, when the team had less maybe dynamism, but the results spoke for themselves. I think the reporter who was asking that might have even said something like that. But I think Kenny really hit the nail on the head here when he said like in the playoffs you have to have options. You have to be able to play multiple different kinds of lineups, and those lineups have to be able to do 2, 3, 4 different things well. Like simple just doesn't really play in the postseason. Streamline doesn't really play in the postseason. You have to have counters to your counters to your counters. And to Kenny's point, especially with the roster that he has as currently constituted, I just don't see a world in which he's like, I would like less playmaking. I would like less optionality in my offense. I just want to spam high pick and rolls and see how far I can get with that, because playoff scheme and playoff defense and playoff intensity just aren't going to work for that. So, I just thought it was a great answer. Generally, I think if you listen to one piece of off-season availability or media as a Cavs fan, that Koby Kenny presser, I think is the number one thing you should listen to. Of course, after my sit down with Kenny, which we're going to play at the end of this podcast. But I just think it gave you such a clear view into Koby, I think, obviously Koby is always going to be, his job's just different in a press availability like that. But I think Kenny gave a lot of hints into the things that he wants to see this team do and what he kind of wants to see this team be. So I just thought that was really interesting. And you started to hear that get reflected in the kind of answers that Evan and Darius were given at Media Day when they were asked about kind of how things might look a little different for them.
A lot more usage this year, a lot more playmaking with the ball in my hand, and me trailing into the top of the key and flowing into offense, and a lot of different ways that you guys are going to use me. And but yeah, overall, I think it's going to be a great year.
Well, he told me it's going to be a lot more down screens for me, a lot more off the ball actions for me, so I get a couple of catch and shoots. Yeah, that was pretty much it. A lot of off ball actions for me, get a couple open ones.
So, something that I think has been really interesting when kind of talking about what the team needs is, everyone says, oh, Evan needs more reps, Darius needs more reps. And, a few people have rightfully said that, okay, well, there's only one ball, so you can only give so many reps to so many people. And that is true. However, I think a motif that I hear, from those sound bites from Evan and Darius, from Kenny on Friday, is that I think the number one thing that I kind of intuited, Kenny didn't say this verbatim, and you'll never hear coaches say this verbatim. So this is my interpretation, to be abundantly clear. But it seemed to me, because he also talked about how, when he was asked about how to help Donovan take the next step, he talked about hey, we got to get Donovan some easy ones. How about some open catch and shoot threes? He's one of the best statistical catch and shoot shooters in the league. Why don't we get Donovan some easy ones so we're not just always throwing him grenades? And what that told me is that, compared to last year, I think he wants to see more diversity in who starts plays and who finishes plays. I think, especially by the back half of the year, the last couple months of the year, it just kind of felt like the Cavs' entire offense had become Darius or Donovan initiates a set, and either they get open for a layup or a pull up, or one of the bigs kind of flushes it. So Evan and Jarrett were kind of, the last couple months of the year, in my opinion, were kind of more play finishers than play starters. And Darius and Donovan were kind of more play starters than play finishers. I don't remember very many, off ball curl actions for Darius where he just got an easy three or caught the ball with advantage. A lot of it was like, okay, I'm going to start against a defense that's loaded up against me. And between Kenny's comments there, between Evan and Darius's comments, it just kind of feels like he wants to start mixing that up. He talked a lot about usage for Evan, touches for Evan, him acting as a playmaker, as a trailer. He has just spent an inordinate amount of time talking about how Evan is going to be that guy, who's going to get a lot of reps. And Evan even talked a little bit about, in his press, I didn't clip this one, but he even talked about how he's going to have room to do things he's not good at yet. Which I thought was, frankly, maybe it was just a slip of the tongue, but I thought it was kind of a cool, vulnerable thing where he's like, hey, I need to practice. I'm gonna be put in a spot to do stuff that I'm maybe a B- C+ at, not an A+ at. I think last year things kind of pared down for Evan a little bit, where it was like, for the you're gonna take a couple threes, but for the most part, we really just want you dunking and layupping. And I think the more playmaking reps he gets, the more times where we say, hey, how about Evan runs an inverted pick and roll and just see how it goes. Let's see how his handle holds up. I think the team is just going to learn more and ultimately raise their ceiling. So it does feel like the offense just coming from different directions. Donovan getting to cut baseline. He's a very good cutter, by the way. We just didn't. I mean, how many baseline cuts did we see Donovan do in the playoffs last year? It was a lot of usage being soaked up at the top of the key by the two guards. So I think that their offense is going to look more equal opportunity. Now, where Kenny has to get some buy-in and where it's going to be a little more challenging than it sounds here is, it's really easy to install offense. It's really easy to say, hey, we're going to have different people initiating. It's a lot harder when guys are bumping you 2 feet off the spot where you actually want to catch the ball for the set, and they're jamming you on the screens, and it's just really hard for anything to get done. And now a set that you normally get in at 16 seconds, you're getting in with 9 seconds left in the shot clock. And when that's happening, it's really easy to say, screw it, we're running high pick and roll. So I think that's something that the Cavs did. Like, they did play faster last year, but in crunch time, it always felt like they slowed down again. They always felt like they were back to playing kind of safe reductionist basketball. And so that's where half the job of coaching comes in, which is like, hey, we all agree that this is the right thing, right? Well, you better agree under duress too. You better agree when it's hard or sloppy or the game's getting away from us. And that is really where we're going to test the level of buy-in that Kenny has from the team. Obviously, nothing but positive indicators at Media Day, but that's Media Day. You get a lot of positive indicators. Speaking of positive indicators, a little bit of just a nice little moment from our dear sweet prince, Jared Allen, who talked about why he extended with the team.
Genuinely, I like it here. Not obviously basketball. I like the city. I like the people here. And, it's easy to say in front of everybody just to hype everybody up. But I truly do genuinely like it here. And I believe in it here. And I put in 3.5 years, whatever long it's been, to try to see this team succeed. And I'm genuinely happy that they've put their trust in me for another whatever years. Yeah.
It was definitely cool to see Jarrett kind of I feel like his extension was kind of slid under the radar a little bit, but I do think the one thing I want to talk about was the run it back kind of side of this, because a pretty consistent motif when you listen to the media availabilities was people asking hey, How does it feel? The East changed a lot. Look at all these trades the Knicks have made. Look at all these trades that, look at how different Philly is. And you're running back literally your entire roster sans Marcus Morris, who knows? I believe he got let go by the Knicks, just as a result of that reported trade. And I just think, you generally got an energy of like, we're good with who we got. Well, we think we have enough talent. I think George Niang said that the team was the most talented team he's ever played on. It didn't seem like a team that was longing for things to be blown up. Darius, Kenny told the story of Darius kind of talking to him saying like, Coach, we vibe. This team vibes. And there's a big difference between vibing off the court and being good hangs and vibing on the court. And I do think the team has a little bit to prove there. It was a weird vibe season on the court last year. Normally weird vibe seasons result in more change than just a coaching staff. But ultimately it does seem like the team, up and down the roster, yeah, we're good. It wasn't again, you're always playing body language, doctor, and it's a really dangerous thing to do on media day. So, you'll have to forgive me a little bit for playing that game, but it didn't seem to me like a group that was like, well, I can't say I didn't want more changes. It felt like a group that was like, yeah, we're comfortable. We have what we need to do what we want to do. Donovan kind of mentioned, he said it straight up. He said, we think we're a championship contender if we're fully healthy. I need to see them prove that. Again, I want to see, a couple killer lineups. I want to see a couple, I want to see the kind of run of play that makes me really confident in that before I'm there. Though, frankly, Donovan should be there before I get there, from our respective seats. So it makes perfect sense. But it just felt like a team that's like, yeah, we're super good. We're super talented. We have depth. We have top end talent. We're young. We're locked in. We know each other. We've learned from each other. And now it's it is a real kind of put up and shut up season from that perspective. Because again, it was a run back roster. And I'm glad that they all like each other. I'm glad that they vibe. And it makes them really fun to root for. But I do think they need to have, I think they need to get back to their 2022, 23 kind of season where, they're one of the best net rating teams in the league, and they're blowing teams out, and they have a real identity from night to night, and their starters are knocking the crap out of teams. I felt like last year, they won games, but I didn't think they had that same fastball as they did last year. They had more pitches, but they didn't have the same fastball. And now I want to see them kind of put their the full suite together and be one of those just lockdown starting pitchers that just can just end games before they start, with being able to control things. So overall, I thought it was a great media day. I thought it was, it seems like a team that is connected. I don't feel like I have a lot of questions about this team. At a macro level, I have a lot of micro questions, and it's hard to wait as long as we've had to wait to get answers. But I do feel like we're so close, and I just, again, there just wasn't that much to pull. There wasn't that much to pull from media day because, for the most part, things are known about this team. I think a few of our Discord listeners, including I think my co-host, got grumpy with the Cavs not being listed on some most intriguing lists on certain podcasts or rankings on certain websites. I'm like, I get it from an outside perspective. I don't this team's, most of this team's big questions are answered at this point. They're not trying to figure out if Donovan's going to stick around anymore. They're not trying to figure out if who their coach is going to be, and if their coach is going to be there for the medium term. They kind of are who they are, and now it's just a matter of are they on the lower end of their expected outcome? Are they on their expected outcome? Are they which in my opinion, and I hope I'm right, are they in the upper end of their expected outcome? And that might not, you're not going to sell a lot of newspapers with where on their medium outcome curve are they going to land. But like as a Cavs fan who has been begging for stability, even during the LeBron era when we were really good, we were never stable. And right now the organization feels stable. The roster feels stable. Feels like it's a group that pretty much knows who they want to be. And there might be some misalignments here and there on how to get there, but and there's going to be changes. There's going to be turmoil just because there always is. But like, it's a level of stability I wasn't sure I was ever going to get to have as a Cavs fan. It's cool to see. And for those who've been listening to this podcast for a long time, you heard me say during the dark years, like, could I just be the grit and grind Grizzlies? A team that's really good, that has an identity, that if things break right, could make a real run. I think this team has a higher ceiling than than that Grizzlies team, but like the stability in the core line competence across the board does feel that way. And I'm glad. I'm glad to have it. So I won't take up much of your time before I toss to the Kenny interview, which I thought was really great. He was really honest and vulnerable with me. He nerded out a little bit with me about pace and about what it's like to learn from getting fired. Like he talked about that, which I was surprised. I thought it was really cool that he was like willing to kind of get that deep with someone he just met in a 20-minute interview. So highly recommend you stick around and listen. Kenny was an awesome temporary co-host while Justin's on vacation. Though Justin, of course, is my favorite companion right after Zoom. Only you can do your best work. Zoom AI companion can help you do the rest, like automatically taking notes, answering meeting questions, and helping you respond to your coworkers. Available at no additional cost with eligible paid plans. Work happy with Zoom AI Companion. All right, gang, that's enough for me live. Thank you so much for letting me blather and drone on a solo pod. I promise I'll have co-hosts the rest of the way so you don't have to hear me do this too much. But I thought it would just be kind of fun to listen to some clips and react. So thank you so much for listening. And without further ado, here's Kenny Atkinson. Hello, welcome. I am joined by Kenny Atkinson, new coach of the Cavaliers. How's it going, Coach?
Fantastic. Adjusting to Cleveland and loving it so far. Family's in a great place, and my kids found a great school, so we're in a great place. And obviously, getting to work with the players is so great. We've had great participation in our OTAs. Things are going great.
I got to ask, you've been in the league for a long time, but, this is still a new team, new city. Does the first day of school feeling ever go away when you're coming in? Do you ever, does it take a minute to get comfortable in a new environment?
Yeah. No, that's a great point. Obviously, new organization, new set of players. I think I'm still in the beginning stages and beginning stages of building relationships with the players. Obviously, a new coaching staff, coaches that have come from other programs, coaches that have been here. So getting to know them, and then just organizationally, right? Like it's like, and you're just meeting someone new every day, but that's fun. Like I always liked the first day of school, like that was kind of cool. Who's going to be in my class? Who's going to be my friend? Who am I going to eat lunch with? So. Kind of in that it's a fun stage right now.
Awesome. Obviously you do have some experience with some of the players on this team. You coached Ty in Golden State, you coached Karis and Jared as their head coach. When you're looking at job offers this offseason, when you're kind of doing your interview process, how much are you reaching out to those guys as you're considering a role like this of like, hey, what's it like? What would I be signing myself up for coming here?
I would just say in general, I like you said, I've been in the league a long time, so even the guys I haven't coached, I have relationships with through a third party, or maybe just from being in the league so darn long. So yeah, that's part of it, because I think when you're obviously when you're going for a job interview in the NBA as a head coach, they're doing their background information, but you're also doing your background information. So part of that is feedback from players and, hey, what do you think of the Cavs program? And that includes not just players that are in the Cavs program, but hey, Draymond, what do you think? What do you think of Cavs? What do you think of their roster? And getting feedback, I think, is important, and not just having a narrow kind of idea what the job's going to be about. But yeah, that's part of it, definitely.
So something that's been really interesting to me, as someone who obviously watches this team pretty darn fervently, is this roster is pretty much a run back. Almost every single rotation player from last year is back. And I think as fans of the sport, I think sometimes we have a tendency to feel like we quote unquote know what a player is, who a player is, what a player is going to be. Can you speak a little bit to how different contexts, like a new coaching staff or just, a different year-to-year environment can change how a player might play?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've seen it, through the history of the NBA, right? You definitely can make roster changes that changes your, changes your approach, but there's also, coaching changes also brings a different approach, and I think that's part of the reason I'm here. And I'm excited. I've studied this team. I feel like I know it pretty well, but obviously I've coached a bunch of the players. But I'm also an NBA fanatic, kind of like you are, where I've watched a lot of Cavs games over the years. So, yeah, I think that's part of the challenge, right? This new approach, this different approach, and like I said, our staff, myself, we really kind of relish this challenge to bring this kind of program to the next step. So, it's exciting.
Yeah, and you kind of mentioned that next step, and I think it's really interesting because you were kind of asked a little bit about expectations and the availability earlier, and like, how do you differentiate your goals for the team and your expectations for the team? Because sometimes those are the same things. Sometimes it can be a little different. Maybe the goal is the loftier thing, the expectations the minimum. Kind of how do you define those two things, and how do you communicate that to your staff, to your players, et cetera?
Yeah, first thing I do is ask the players. That was the first part of this process. What's your team expectations, team goals, and I like to hear it from them first, and I definitely jot that down, because we have like you said, we all have a different a different idea what that looks like, and I like to get that kind of consensus from the players. I also ask the staff the same thing, and we kind of formulate our idea, our team idea. So it's not just the head coach coming in and say, hey, here's our goals, here's our expectations. It's something we're talking about, and that's where the communication is so important. That's where in this league, and probably in professional sports, in general, that feedback is super important. And the message I'm hearing is, hey, coach, we can't skip steps. We're taking this step by step. We want to improve on what we did last year. Obviously that, conference finals, or some of the players said, yes, championship. Everyone had their own thing. And we're going to kind of crowdsource that to like, hey, this is what it looks like for us. But every coach has their I think some dictate that. I think for us, it's going to be more of a community thing. But I've always been, just philosophically, not one to shout on the mountaintops, hey, we're going to do this, or I'm promising this, right? It's all the steps, it's all your processes, and Koby talks about this all the time. Are our processes in place? Are we doing, kind of winning on the margins in kind of every department across the organization? And that's kind of, how you make the next step. So we're that's a work in progress right now, obviously with the new coaching staff, and trying to push this thing to the next level.
You mentioned kind of talking to players, figuring out what their goals and their expectations are, and something that I find to be an interesting challenge with this team, if for God-forsaken reason I were asked to coach this team, which we don't want. But if that were the case, you mentioned during your availability that you want to use your depth. You want to play 10 guys. Yeah. And how do you kind of balance going deeper into your rotation, also having this very secured top four that are all going to, be, that you might want to play heavy minutes to,
Yeah.
Just because, most teams maybe have a top 2, you have a top 4.
Right. So, and you have to be careful, right? Like the game's going to tell you, we're obviously competitors. We want to win the game. But also my job as a head coach is also to think big picture, right? What is 82 game season? What is it? Are we going to chase this game? We're down 15 or up 15 with
Yeah,
the
we're only going to be up 15, Coach.
Yeah, but it happens, right? But are we thinking big picture? Because it's also what's best for those top 4 guys, right? And NBA players, they want to play 48 minutes every game. So these are conversations we're having, before the season. Obviously, those guys are going to play a ton of minutes, but kind of my pact with them is also like, hey, we're going to play you, these minutes, but we want you to be more efficient in these minutes, right? Because maybe we'll play an extra guy or 2 extra guys this game. So again, getting everybody, the big thing is communicating early with that, getting everybody on the same page, and also getting, for us to be a program where, man, tonight we got 2 guys out, we got 2 ways up. We're going to play them 10 minutes a game, and maybe our 11th guy is going to play 22 minutes, and we go in and win the game on the road. Like those are like real program celebrators. Those are things that you can take into the playoffs. What it's the old Phil Jackson thing. We need all. Back then it was 12, right? We need all 12. I always say we pay 18. Like we pay 18. So all of you are gonna have a role, and I think you build better chemistry that way in the long run.
Yeah, that's an awesome answer. You mentioned those kind of cultural organizational wins. I think of Craig Porter winning a game for them, and they.
I remember that game. Yeah, I remember that game
last year. Those are the kind of things where I remember we went on post game. We were like, that's a thump your chest as an organization type of game where you go, hey, we're finding helpful players up and down the roster. So. And
that's including, it's including our 2-way guys, right? Like, man, we got really Amani, we got Luke, we got some ribs. So those guys, can they come in during the year and really give you a boost during the year? Obviously, Jalen's in that bucket too. That's exciting. I really enjoy that part of the business. But there's a responsibility for us, right, to develop those guys so they are, when the moment comes, they're ready.
Yeah. I want to talk to you about pace. Because pace is always kind of a hot topic, especially in the off season.
Yeah.
Every coach talks pace. This team has not been a particularly quick team, especially in the half court the last couple years. They've ranked near the bottom of the league in half court, pace percentage. How do you speed that up? How important is speeding that up, if at all? And what are like some of the tactical things you can do to like get that pace up a little bit in the half court?
It's super important. We all know the statistics, right? Transition possessions are by far, the highest value possessions you can have, right? Points per possession wise, so it's important that we before even the tactic, it's getting a buy-in from the players. Okay, here's an area where we have to get better. We tell them the why, including, giving them the analytics on it. And then we obviously have to strategize how we're teaching that on the court, how we're teaching it on the film. It's like multi-layered. And it's also your communication with your best players and your leadership group. Like, man, guys, if we want to take the next step, offensively, we're gonna have to increase our pace. And there are, I don't know how kind of nerdy we want to get. I can definitely give you.
We love to get nerdy.
I can definitely give you the bullet points, right? So that's getting the ball out quicker after a make. That's important. Higher outlets are important. Pass aheads have great intrinsic value, like in terms of pace of what you do. Pass aheads, pass across, getting it over. Not only the ball handler getting it up quick, but the other 4 guys. I think that's what people miss. Like, oh man, this guy's got to push it. Yeah, well, if I push it and there are 3 guys behind me, you're not
ready to get into the set, or yeah.
But we have to convince our players, like, you 4 guys without it's so important, for our transition efficiency, for you guys to run to. And then we got to give them the specific spacing we want. That's another piece of it. I'd say the last piece of it is, when you're talking about increasing your pace, I think we were 13th in causing turnovers last year. Can we get in the top 8 this year? Turnovers to transition. That's the highest value possession you can have. And we got Donovan Mitchell, #1 in the league in deflections, Darius Garland, #9. Like, we got guys that can cause turnovers. We obviously got our active bigs. So that's another thing. So I just gave you my speech to the team in my film session.
That's exactly what I wanted.
Yeah, and but the hardest thing is to get their buy-in.
Yeah.
Because 82 games, I got to run again. Man, I got to get to the corner. So we're going to celebrate when definitely more on the side of positive reinforcement. So and then you'll see in training camp we'll do some unique breakdowns as far as encouraging all the things I'm talking about.
Well, thanks for nerding out with me, Coach.
Yeah,
You never gotta apologize
all right,
for-
that's good
for-
to know.
for
We're
being
getting to
nerdy
know
with
each
us.
other better.
I think our listeners are going to be super geeked to
Yeah.
kind of hear the details, because you don't always get those
Yep.
in the fan seat.
Yep.
Something I do want to kind of before I let you go, I really want to ask you about this, because in your initial press conference after being hired with the team, you spent an inordinate amount of time talking about learning in your last 5-6 years of being an assistant, and I found, just again from my kind of layperson seat, when I hear a coach talk about all the things they learned from their mentors, as often as you were, a lot of it's like the guy getting their first coaching job. So I found it to be really noteworthy how much you were really leaning in to what you were learning. Can you speak a little bit about your learning kind of your belief system as a kind of a lifelong learner?
It's great, yeah. So the first thing that happened, my first job, quite honestly, I got fired, and it took me a while to just get over that. Right, that's a shock to the system, and you could look at it two ways. Oh man, I didn't deserve that, but I eventually got to a place that was like, what can I do better? Like, there's obviously things I was not good at, and once I got to that place, it's like, okay, what are the steps? What are my next steps in terms of professional growth? And yeah, a big part of that was like, man, how can I get with, obviously gonna have to, kind of restart this as an assistant coach, but who around the league can I learn from? And being strategic about, hey, there's a situation like Ty. Ty had so much respect for him, and
So do we.
Yeah, obviously won a championship, and guy's a hell of a coach. And man, can I strategize and get with Ty and learn? And it was, I'll pat myself, it was a brilliant move. Like I go with Ty, we get to the conference finals, I see how he deals with Paul George and Kawhi, and just cut down to his, and then Steve too, like Steve, me and Steve had a great relationship, and throughout the years, I was like, man, there's another guy I could learn from, and how do you manage these super talented teams, and it's not just the superstars. It's like, man, when there's so much talent in the building, and I tell you, it's just, and that's why I'm like so much more confident this second time through, because I had those experiences. Now you can't copy them, right? Like. No. There's no copying.
Still gotta be you.
Yeah, I got to be myself. Like high school coach, that was the best advice he gave me. He said, "You got to be yourself. Like, just be yourself." But man, I've taken so many things from those two guys, and so thankful. But yeah, it was definitely strategic getting in their worlds and learning. And then it's the coaches, right? But also being around Draymond Green, Steph Curry, Paul George, seeing all the different star personalities, because they're all different, and how to kind of manage through that. And again, I feel like it's going to really help me this second time through. And I'm still going to make mistakes, and I'm still going to have growth opportunity. But I am a continuous learner. I think that's definitely have the humility, like definitely not the smartest person in the room, but I am curious, and I'm going to keep getting better at this.
Yeah, well, that I mean, it's an amazing answer. It is kind of funny. It feels like your journey from you go to guy who won a title for this franchise to a guy who they were going to war with for 4 or
Yeah.
5 years in the finals. Almost felt like you were predestined to land here.
Oh, and I had all the inside information on those battles too. So talking to Ty, what he thought of Golden, so what he thought of Steph, and then Steve. They both have tremendous respect for each other. But man, the chess battles and you guys, this room was around that. But to
we were
be
sweating through those battles.
yeah, and to be privy to that, and that's I ingested. I was like, man, I'm learning from these conversations, and just all. That's why it makes this job so fun. Like at the end of the day, this is a fun job because we're constantly learning. We're constantly around people that they can help you get better. It's an incredible job. It's like so blessed to be sitting in this seat again.
Yeah, it's better. I always tell my coworkers at my day job, it's better than filing taxes.
Yeah,
Basketball for a living. It's a pretty good gig.
I always tell our assistants sometime when we're in the doldrums, February, it's like, guys, look how we're dressed, right? Like we're in sweats and we got to complain. Oh, this guy's not running back on defense. This guy's like we're helping the best players in the world come together and win basketball games. Like what's better than that?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Great.
Best of luck to you this season.
Great session.
We are, as a fan base, so excited
Yes.
to have you on board, and cannot wait to see what's to come, sir.
Let's go.
Thank
All
you,
right.
sir.
Great to meet you.
Appreciate it. All right. That was Kenny Atkinson. Hope you enjoyed. Again, thank you so much to the Cavs for setting that up. Special shout out to the pod god, Matthew Gold, our dear friend and handler over at the Cavs, who did all the post-production to make that interview look and sound good, and generally is just a super duper hero for Justin and I whenever we're trying to do anything with the team. So big shout outs to Goldie, the man himself. We love him. Well, that should be it for this week's pod. Thank you so much for listening. Media Day has come and gone, but the chase down never ends, never stops. We'll be back next week. Preseason is so very close. Thank you so much for listening. If you are a fan of the pod, if you like this, please, if you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit a like, hit a subscribe on that. If you're listening on audio, please subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe. Help cook those books, baby. We got to pump the numbers up while Justin's gone, so he knows I did a good job. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. Cavs season is almost here. Stay safe as always, and please go Cavs.